All right. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Armchair Producers. I am one of your hosts, George Tarrant, alongside the man, the myth, the airborne legend, Mr. Travis Croft. How are you, sir?
I am fine and dandy. I realize you can't see my t-shirt tonight, so you had to reference the airborne poster on the wall behind me.
Well, it's the two key references that I have is the airborne poster, the air conditioning, and a tap. So I figured, no, you're not a tap master, but maybe I'll use that later on. And you're
Maybe
not.
I don't know. I've never worked in a bar, so I wouldn't lay claim to have any particular tap skills other than drinking from them.
Well, there you go. That's a skill.
Hooray!
And yes, so this is the latest episode of Armchair Producers. We do apologize for the delays. I have been suffering from depression attacks and general life intervening and taking up all of my free time. So sorry for all of the Russian bots out there who have been left hanging. I hope you have been enjoying the Tales from Eberron audio that I've been putting up. Again, sorry for the delay on some of that. For some reason, it seems to not like uploading the audio for those files, but they're still coming. And we actually have two little things to get over and done with at the top of the show, Travis. Two. One, this episode and the entire Armchair Producers is brought to you by me, and particularly my book, Vaughn, a Volition story saga, which is available digitally and paperback in the UK and American Amazon stores. Digitally is available everywhere, and it is really cheap. So I do recommend and do hope that you go over and check out this science fantasy detective noir thriller story of my first ever novel. So
I was going to say it's my favorite of George's novels so far.
It really
it's got that going for it. It's the best novel he's ever written.
Mm-hmm. I can comfortably say that of all the novels that I have written, this is the most recent.
I can say of all the novels I've read in the last 5 years that include vampires in Paris, it's the best. We're still vampires in Paris, right? Spoilers, there are vampires in it, so get around it, people, before he sells out to Marvel like everybody else.
I'm not selling out to Marvel. I'm never selling out to Disney, because they are just taking everything and they are fucking everything up, which will be one of my talking points in the show. But the other thing to mention is we actually have an official executive producer of the show. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we are professionals, and the executive producer is Mr. Eric Forrest. Thank you very much.
That is one-time special guest, Eric Forrest.
Yes, our once and future special guest, perpetually. That if you'd like to be an executive producer, just so that you can put it on your CV or resume, please contact us and we'll shout out your name for you. Thank you very much.
It'd be like fucking Twitch streamers, but except we're not hot.
Exactly. Well, we're so hot right now. Now, I figure, considering it's been a while since we did the show, we should probably get to the big thing that we left hanging from last episode, which was a list of our top 5 Michael Bay movies. Do you have your top 5 Michael Bay movies?
Yes.
I can start us off if you'd like a little bit more time to just consider the list.
It kind of escaped my mind, but let me see if I can improv it based on his... He's done significantly fewer actual features than you think when you look at his...
He is definitely
61,
more...
but that's a lot of music videos, which I don't think should be included as features.
I think they have their own tab.
I'm trying to think of those 5 films that I've seen of his that I didn't hate. So films I actually kind of liked that Michael Bay did. The Rock.
Yep, that's my number 1.
Pain and Gain.
Yep, that's my number 4.
So 13 Hours was kind of good.
Did he actually direct that?
He's listed as a director.
Okay. I haven't watched that one.
It's shameless propaganda, but it's not bad. Then we get into the stuff that I didn't like, but I didn't hate as much as some of the other stuff. I would say The Island.
I enjoyed that. That's my number 3.
It was something a little bit different that he tried to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're down to films that are about, which I hate less, Transformers or Armageddon. And I go with Transformers just because it had an Australian actor in it playing Cybertron.
Oh, Hugo Weaving, yeah.
They're weaving in it. And it brought us Megan Fox.
For
Sort
better
of.
or worse.
So, in no particular order, those are the 5 best films. And of those, I would say the film I probably enjoyed the most. The 2 I enjoyed the most of his, I would say probably would be The Rock, a close second behind Pain and Gain, which I know is a controversial call because most people hate that film, especially actual genuine people who do this job for a living and review films. But I thought it was funny. And I would say 13 Hours in third place because, like I said, it is shameless propaganda. It does change some of the events that actually happened in that real story, which were probably unnecessary. Little things. Like one of the contractors who's killed in the compound is playing Fortnite, I think, or Call of Duty or something.
Right.
And they're killed. But he was there and he was playing video games. And apparently he was a very well-known figure in an online MMORPG, EVE Online. I think it was EVE Online. But he was, I guess, the space one.
I think so, yeah.
But yeah, he was actually like an actual well-known figure of some note in the community. And I'm like, that's not. Yeah, I mean, it may seem like a small thing, but it says something to me about Bay as a filmmaker. But something so irrelevant as what video game he was playing had to be changed to something people would recognize as opposed to something accurate to character.
Who's actually sponsoring? Come on.
Yeah, I guess there could have been some money change hands. So those are the 3 films I think of it I've done of his that I would say are enjoyable enough, and toss up between the other 2 that aren't quite so bad.
See, for me, The Rock is the standout number 1 because it was one of the last great roles that Sean Connery had. Nicolas Cage was his usual quirky but still actually entertaining self. And Ed Harris was great in it as well. He's always great. So there you go. It actually had quite an, it obviously got, it's one of the Michael Bay's obvious things that's like really kind of chest beating for the US military. But this actually had a little bit of that touch of like, there is actually a kind of a point that he's making here. It's obviously being vastly covered over by all of the pomp and circumstance and stupidity of the rest of the movie. But it just does make you think a little bit. And Ed Harris's performance and the reasoning behind his work does actually make you pause for a moment and think, like, yeah, that's fair. Why are they being treated shit? Next up, number 2 for me is Bad Boys. Because
I don't think I've ever actually seen Bad Boys.
Really? None of them?
No, none of them. They never interested me.
Fair enough.
I can't stand Martin Lawrence.
Martin Lawrence is the most annoying part of those movies, and it does make it really hard to watch. But Will Smith is fantastic in it, and it's just it's a A-level movie, but very clearly a B or C grade movie. It's got that stupidity to it, and it's certainly not trying to be anything smart. So it's a shameless guilty pleasure. Number 3 for me was The Island because yes, it was quite a nice, cool idea, and it was a break away from Michael Bay. The story went kind of generic and a bit stupid by the end, but the first half or so of that movie is like, okay, this is actually quite an interesting concept. And then you remember, oh wait, it's Michael Bay. Okay, yeah, cool. Number 4, Pain and Gain, because I thought that The Rock was really good in it. Anthony Mackie and Mark Wahlberg, all great, very very well done. And number 5, Transformers, because it was dumb and it brought us the wonderful delight that is the supercuts of Shia LaBeouf saying no, 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 no. which is always worth its weight.
As long as that film, the script feels like it's 10 years out of date already when they made it.
Yeah.
Like the jokes are like really bad, and like they might have been funny in the late 90s, but by the 2010, it was whenever it was made. They're like, no,
Yeah.
guys, you just leave it sitting on a shelf for 10 years and pick up and film it.
Yeah. But also, it's based on robots fighting each other. And they went, yeah, you know what? That's a really fun concept that could be super bombastic. Let's make it about an annoying human. Yes. Yes.
Well, I remember when it came out, people were making noises like, wow, it's a Michael Bay film. It doesn't suck. It's a Transformers film. It doesn't suck.
Yeah.
And then I went and saw it. And I'm like, this? No, this sucks. It was awful. But in the scheme of, the levels of hell that is Michael Bay's filmography, this is not quite down near Pearl Harbor at the bottom, or the Transformers sequels.
Yeah, they progressively get worse, for sure. All right, well, we got that quick thing out of the way. Let's step into some new territory. What have you been watching, my man?
Last time we were talking about a film, the new Harley Quinn film. Did you actually get to see it?
I did.
So we can start with that because we've both seen it.
Yeah.
It sucks. It's bad. And it's every bit as bad as the first trailer that came out. And I thought, wow, that looks awful. And lo and behold, it's just as bad as it looked in that trailer. So I think you and I agreed to some degree a couple of years ago with Suicide Squad, if I recall correctly. I know I wasn't a fan. I thought it was bad. Mm-hmm. It is an objectively bad film, despite the fact anybody tried telling you something different. Mm-hmm. But what highlight, as I recall for you and I, was we both sort of walked away going, oh, Margot Robbie was pretty good as Harley Quinn. And remarkably, Jay Courtney was good as Captain Boomerang. What the fuck was up with that?
Yeah.
That's, there's there's
problems when that is your takeaway.
Yeah, he's a rift in the universe somewhere when, like, Jay Courtney's not a cardboard piece of plastic in the background somewhere like he was in Genesis. But so I remember thinking, we both said, look, they're going to make a Harley Quinn standalone film because she was great in this. Margot Robbie gone from strength to strength after that. She's got Academy Award nominations. She's a wonderful actress.
Yep.
And far and away the most successful character
easily
in that film. Here we have the standalone Harley Quinn film. She's jammed somewhat unsuccessfully into the Birds of Prey, which, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think she traditionally is a main part of the Birds of Prey.
She's certainly not one of the iconic characters of Birds of Prey as part of the groups known as Birds of Prey, because she's Harley Quinn, not a bird. And most of the Birds of Prey have that kind of moniker of some kind of... Yeah, exactly. It's that kind of stuff. And they're like, okay.
It looks like that someone's come on and painted pinks and greens over everything on the print. What to say about this? Like, the acting's over the top. The characters are uncompelling. Harley Quinn, unfortunately, despite the fact she was the highlight of the picture the first time around, she's not a strong enough character to carry an entire story by herself. The motivations are murky without the Joker around. I guess to give a little bit of background, if you miss the story, Harley Quinn has broken up with Joker because they didn't want to get Jared Leto anywhere near that role again. And that she has been under the Joker's protection, is basically acting like a shithead around town. And now, once people find out she's not protected by the Joker anymore, everyone wants to kill her, including Black Mask, played by Ewan McGregor, who is one of the few highlights of the film. And a whole bunch of crazy shit happens. She hooks up with a couple other shady characters to, try and prevent Ewan McGregor from basically cutting a young girl open to retrieve a diamond or something, and
so that he can essentially gain control of at least half of Gotham's underground.
It's a big old mess, like I said. So, as I said, Margot Robbie does her best. She's in it far too much. The Birds of Prey characters are underdeveloped, and I think probably the most developed character is Canary, who sort of approaches something interesting. I think you as well. I am a big Mary Elizabeth Winstead fan. In like she was in Brain Dead, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that was the one you put me onto. And like, so after seeing her, I'm like really a fan. I quite liked her in Scott Pilgrim. So to see her in such an anemic, pathetically written character as she is as Huntress, I mean, I think she does well with what she has, but the kid's annoying. It's just terrible.
I really liked Mary Elizabeth as the Huntress, and she was easily the best and had the most compelling and intriguing and kind of Batman-like action sequences throughout the whole movie. She looked like a badass when she was doing shit. Like the way that she was moving on around the final fight scene with all of the like trampolines and stuff. She just always looked cool. I have a ridiculous soft spot for Mary Elizabeth Winstead, so I'm a little bit biased.
More of her. She had an interesting little backstory as a character. With some motivation. I'm like, I want more. I want to know more about her. And like, she's just really just jammed in with very minimal.
That's the biggest problem with this movie is they're trying to they've essentially done with all of the female characters what they did with Justice League, where they threw all these people together and there's not enough build up to it. It's like it was, they're trying to do the Avengers before they did all of the solo movies, because the backstory of the Huntress is actually interesting and they could do that really, really compellingly. That would make an interesting story. Renee Montoya's character is actually really interesting, and how she becomes she eventually takes on the moniker of the Question, which is just again really cool and really compelling character. Black Canary is awesome. All of them have these really rich, interesting stories that they could have very easily done, and they could have done essentially an all women's solo movie saga culminating in this sort of thing. But they don't have anywhere near enough time. Kathy Yan, the director, clearly went style over substance. And, there was a bunch of reviews that I read before I saw it saying, the pacing's all over the place, which is 100% is. But even in the fight sequences, it's more like a music video than it is a movie, and there is a very different style of consumption of that media, and having that for 90 minutes or however long the movie is, it's like, okay, no, it just didn't feel right watching it, which is a big shame. And
it's lazily written. I think a sign of a very lazily written film these days is going to go, we're going to make a girl power movie.
Yeah.
Yay. And then you really play up the girl power angle. And the best way to do that is, apparently, according to lazy Hollywood writers, is make every male character in the film as unlikable and horrible as humanly possible. They're stupid and unlikable. So every male character in this film is stupid and unlikable and horrible. And there is have no redeeming qualities whatsoever we see.
Yeah.
And
Ewan McGregor.
That's how you make a girl power movie, apparently. You don't make compelling, interesting, powerful characters that young girls can look up to and aspire to be. You just make them look good because they're better than the guys who are awful.
Yeah.
And I'm not in here as some men's rights activist. Like, it's just really, really noticeable that that's a trend that they keep cramming in because they don't know how to actually write a decent film for a woman, even when they're written by women.
Yeah. Ewan McGregor, he was fun as the Black Mask, but the Black Mask and the way that they were telling his side of the story, it didn't fit with the rest of it either. It's like, okay, so this is the emancipation of one Harley Quinn. That's the full name of this movie. And she's supposed to be learning throughout this that she doesn't need the corrupt relationship that she was in with Joker. And yet she never gets that kind of opportunity to... I was expecting, when I first started seeing Ewan McGregor on screen and how he was acting and being misogynistic and horrible and just brutal and mean, it's like, okay, this is a kind of a surrogate for the Joker. So through her interactions with him, she's going to realize that she is more than that. And she is strong on her own and blah, blah, blah. They didn't do any of that. And it's like, no, he's just a cock. And he's lazily just trying to take over by stealing someone else's money. Okay, that's not interesting. That's not compelling. That's
seen that millions of times.
Yeah, and the Black Mask, as I've said before, with all of these characters, is actually really interesting, and particularly his relationship with Batman and all of the people in the Batman family. He's a very compelling character. They just thought, all right, DC fans will know everything that we need to. We can miss out all the background of these ones because the audience knows. And like, well, yes, to a point, but you have to bring it together cohesively and sensibly. But at the same time, you don't just want established DC fans. You want to bring in new people. That's how Marvel have done it. And they've proven fucking track record that Disney doesn't make movies that make less than $1 billion anymore. It's absurd.
It means, like, if someone told you that, like, 10 years ago,
Yeah.
in 10 years now, the Guardians of the Galaxy will be household names.
Yeah.
Like, who the fuck are the Guardians of the Galaxy?
Exactly. Exactly.
Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Who the fuck's Black Panther? No one knows these characters, and these films, as you said, all made a squealy. Even Captain Marvel, which was awful, made $1 billion. It was possibly the worst Marvel film since the Hulk films. And you're right. So it was. I don't know if anybody out there, if it's still showing. It absolutely bombed at the box office. No huge surprise there. It didn't look good, and it was misconceived at every step of the way. Maybe a better choice would have been to go, you know what, hold off on Harley Quinn film, and have her and Joker as your main villains in the new Pattinson Batman film. Like, who wouldn't want to see? She hasn't really had any screen time with Batman, and like, I don't know, but I'm guessing there's a significantly interesting relationship between Harley and Joker and Batman as some sort of triangle, right? Like, people love this character. But as it is, I think now maybe they've burned this character.
I don't think
Margot
it's
want to come.
I mean, come on. The next time Robbie is Harley Quinn, it's in The Suicide Squad by James Gunn, and James Gunn is a talented director. He's been very passionate about this project of The Suicide Squad. I think it's gonna. I don't see how this movie could be any worse than the first Suicide Squad or Birds of Prey. I think it's going to be a huge improvement overall, and I think that this is it will be the defining moment for what happens with Harley Quinn. Because if the Suicide Squad comes out and it bombs somehow, then rip it apart and start again.
Define what a bomb is. The first one made enough money to get this made. I mean, the first one made $500-600 million or something, I think, from memory. If it does those numbers again,
critically
happy with
that? They won't be happy with that. They won't be happy at all. I mean, they were devastated that the Justice League made, I think, total worldwide like 800 million, which is abysmal for a movie with that level of audience recognition in Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. You should have been pushing 1.2 billion easily, but nope, it stalled, and it had a lot of problems, obviously, but they're not happy.
I'm serious. I mean, the only thing that could potentially make me curious about seeing another Suicide Squad film, because after two essential, a Suicide Squad film and a spin-off that both sucked, is the fact that James Gunn's directing and Taika Waititi's in it. Like, okay, I'll see it. I don't care what it is, I'm seeing it. So those two things get me across the line. But I'm sorry, there are people out. This film got good reviews somehow. It goes to show. I mean, I got kind of grumpy. People who know me on Facebook might have seen me get a bit grumpy about the fact that he's had a fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes and a pretty good score on Rotten Tomatoes, which I think is yet another endorsement that I don't think we should be using that website as any kind of measure of quality anymore. It's just too unreliable.
Yeah.
If you can get a 6 out of 10 and that be considered a positive review, and then go, it got mainly 6 out of 10s, and then you get a fresh rating, that's no.
Mm.
They're taking money. They're taking money to get fresh rating. To give out fresh
Oh, we're
rating.
starting conspiracies or perpetuating conspiracies on this show. We are getting.
I would say something like Metacritic is a better read of what this film is, and like if you look at a Metacritic score for it, I think it's about 60, which reflects 6 out of 10, which is probably generous, but much closer to where it should be. Moving on from that one, I guess. So there you go. That's a thumbs down. It is a 60 Metascore, by the way. We were talking Suicide Squad, and I'd like to move on with that, sort of in a sense, because one of the main stars of the Suicide Squad is in the next show that I actually had to watch as part of my significant amount of free time I've had lately. Not working. Joel Kinnaman, RoboCop himself.
Ah, yes.
Rick Flag in the Suicide Squad films. Also, unfortunately for him, he was in House of Cards. But I've been checking out a couple of the new shows, and I think you've been checking out one as well. The new shows on Apple TV. Apple TV Plus?
Yeah. Well, I only watched a little bit of MythQuest.
Yeah. So I've watched a bit of MythQuest, and we'll get onto that in a tick. I've seen For All Mankind, the entire first season of For All Mankind, and the entire first season of The Morning Show, all three of which are Apple TV Plus exclusives. I'll start with For All Mankind because we're all talking Joel Kinnaman. Joel Kinnaman is the main star of For All Mankind. For All Mankind is the synopsis says the series explores what would have happened if the global space race had never ended.
Okay.
Which is a really fascinating little slice of alternative history. If anybody's a long-term listener will know, I love me some alternative history. It's very rarely done well. It's very often done very poorly. The only other one I can think of that's done it anywhere near as well as this is the Man in the High Castle on Amazon Prime, which is very good. And of course, it's by our favorite author, the show's favorite author, Philip K. Dick. So essentially, this show opens in the first episode with people watching the moon landing in bars, at home, at work, the usual shots you might expect from We Weren't Alive, but you can imagine from when the first man landed on the moon. They come out of a spacecraft. We have the news commentators commentating what's going on. They come out of a spacecraft. They put that, and they open it, and they start their speech to say
one small step for man.
Except this time it's in Russian.
Okay.
I accept this honor in the honor of my people and in the Marxist-Leninist way of life. So the film starts. The first man on the moon is a Soviet cosmonaut, not an American astronaut.
Okay.
And that kind of propels the space race from there because, I'm not a historian of the space race, but I think this will not be the general gist is that once the Americans got to the moon first, it was game over. Yeah. No one was going to Mars. It was too far away. So, once America had been to the moon, a dozen times or so, or however many times they went, the Russians never really got anywhere near landing a man on the moon properly. So that was kind of the main meat of a space race was done by 1971. And then we had, satellites and space shuttles. But if the Soviets got there first, the Americans, the show posits that the Americans would have been significantly more motivated to, unlike the Russians who just sort of gave up, the Americans were like, no, we've got to get there as well. And so the show propels a really fascinating story about, these two countries then sort of pushing each other to first step after first step after first step. And probably for the first 2/3 of a season, America's playing catch up with the Soviet Union in trying to stay up with different steps in the space race. So that we start with, I guess, the first third of a season is about the Soviets got to the moon first. Are the Americans still going? Yes. And they need to successfully deliver a man to the moon. And who is it? And yada, 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 at all the different steps there. Then the Russians go back to the moon afterwards successfully. And the second set of cosmonauts on the moon includes a woman landing on the moon. That actually then propels the Americans to go, okay, well, now we've kind of got to do it too. We've kind of been ignoring, female astronauts. We need to now, bring women into it. And then so there's a whole arc in the story about different women being involved, which I think is done well enough that it kind of avoids the problem of going, well, we're going to now impose 2020 moral values on 1960s America.
Okay.
It does it to an extent, but it's tolerable. And from there, it sort of progresses from there once the Americans get to the moon and, discovering things, other sort of elements of a moon that, propel the space race even forward. I found this show absolutely couldn't turn it down. I binged the whole thing in about 3 days. Absolutely loved it. Joel Kinnaman. The thing is, I think we all saw RoboCop. I think that was the first thing I remember seeing him in and going, what the fuck? What did they cast this idiot?
Yeah.
He wasn't very good in that. Then we saw House of Cards. And he was really good in House of Cards. And you're like, oh, okay. Well, he's not that bad, actually. And then you saw him as Rick Flag, and he was fucking terrible as Rick Flag. Now we're back at good Joel Kinnaman. This is really in his wheelhouse. He plays a very gruff sort of astronaut, probably very much a man of his time, a man of the 1960s. He's really good. And he really, as playing the astronaut Edward Baldwin, kind of really plays the, he drives the story forward. I don't think there's actually anybody particularly famous now. I'm quickly looking through here. The actual ensemble cast is really quite good, but I don't going to call any of them out because
the writer is the biggest name that I know of, Roland D. Moore, and that's because he did the remake of Battlestar Galactica.
He also wrote Star Trek First Contact and Star Trek Generations, so he has a wonderful pedigree in writing science fiction. I don't want to give any spoilers any more than what I've given, other than to say there is a point in the second or third last episode of the season where I genuinely physically gasped. And people who know me, not much surprises me or shocks me or scares me or makes me uncomfortable in film and TV when you watch as much shit as we do. It was a genuine emotional, oh my fucking God, I can't believe just happened moment in this film. TV show. It was wow. I was blown away by it. I mean, I'm not quite sure it was the last episode delivered because you have one of those amazing cliffhangers. The second last episode of the season. Last episode does a pretty good job, but it's fantastic. It's only got a 7.4 rating on IMDb. I think that's a little bit low. But if you like science fiction, if you like stories about interesting stories about space, particularly not necessarily Star Trek or Star Warsy, a little bit more down to earth space, I suspect you're going to enjoy it. I enjoyed it immensely, and I'm very excited that it's being renewed. And I think they've actually finished filming a second season now.
Okay,
so it will land at some point. So to mark one down for the Apple TV Plus, and I'll quickly move on to the morning show. The morning show is an inside look at the lives of people who help America wake up in the morning, exploring the unique challenges faced by the men and women who carry out this daily televised ritual. Here's the plot summary on IMDb. I think that's really not actually delivering anything like what the show is actually about.
Okay.
This is #MeToo, the TV show.
Okay.
I think the Me Too movement is really the engine that propels this TV show forward. It stars Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon and Steve Carell. So Billy Crudup in there as well. Mark Duplass. So it's got a significantly better sort of more prestige, I guess, than the stars. I'm pretty sure Aniston and Witherspoon are also producers of the show. And it's again, I think it's a show largely about women, which manages to avoid being preachy, or
Okay.
doesn't give us one-dimensional cardboard versions of its male characters. They are multifaceted
Mm-hmm.
and nuanced characters who do fucked up shit sometimes, but aren't just ooh, men bad, ooh, hiss, like the man character. So the TV show,
Get the
sorry,
memo
basically
that men are supposed to be just one-dimensional, terrible people now.
that would have been easier to write, but obviously they actually put some effort into this one. Its creators are Jay Carson, who also created House of Cards, which was if we ignore the Kevin Spacey bizzo, was a great show. And Kevin Erin, who is responsible for things like Bates Motel, Friday Night Lights, and Inspector Gadget. I've not seen Friday Night Lights, but I know a lot of people quite like that show.
Yeah, that was the
I
one
watched a little
with
bit of
Taylor Kitsch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So essentially, the morning show is, as it sort of said there, Jennifer Aniston and Steve Carell hosts, your typical morning TV show. And the show opens with us finding out that Steve Carell has been implicated in a Me Too type situation of essentially sexually harassing or assaulting a staff member on the show.
Okay.
And we sort of follow that storyline at the point. Reese Witherspoon is working as a correspondent for a very obscure small TV station in a different part of the country. She gets something she does while presenting the camera and goes viral. She ends up being interviewed on the show by Jennifer Aniston. One thing leads to another, and before you know it, they are hosting the show together.
Mm-hmm.
All the while, Billy Crudup plays a brilliantly sleazy, slimy network executive who is pulling all the strings. He's the puppet master. He's trying to pull all the strings of his in this game to try and get him come out ahead. And he sees Reese Witherspoon as an opportunity, and he really pushes her to the stars. In no way to help her, but to help himself. But at the same time, a grudging type friendship develops between the two of them. Billy Crudup, this is the best thing he's done. He's fucking incredible in this, and I loved every second he was on screen. Jennifer Aniston, he was amazing. He and his penis were amazing in Watchmen. I love that guy. He didn't get his penis should have got an Oscar nomination. Jennifer Aniston plays really against type here. I think she has a standard character. She's an Aniston character she plays. She is bitchy. She is, calculating, Machiavellian, evil character here in a way at times, but otherwise at other times can be incredibly vulnerable. So I don't want to spoil too much about what goes on. That's sort of where we start. We start with, Steve Carell, accused of sexually harassing a staff member, is fired from his show. Reese Witherspoon comes into the orbit of this show. We have a new network executive, Billy Crudup, trying to do something different with the show to try and increase his own power. And that's kind of a narrative that kind of moves the thing forward. Steve Carell genuinely doesn't actually think he's done anything wrong.
Okay.
Though there's a wonderful scene where he's at his mansion and he's hosting Martin Short, who plays a disgraced film director. And they're sitting there bouncing ideas off each other about, geez, what did we do wrong? Oh, well, I had sex with these women. Oh, I had an affair. When's an affair legal? That kind of conversation. And at the point where Martin Short, obviously, now that Steve Carell is kind of included in the same club, it's a little bit like Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey sitting down and having a chat, right? All of a sudden, Martin Short starts to share details of things that he did, which, he's like, can you believe it? They criticized me for this. And there's this wonderful moment where Steve Carell realizes, oh my God, I'm not him. I did bad shit. And then he suddenly realizes, and he starts criticizing him, going, well, no, that's wrong. You did what you did was wrong, and that's illegal, and that's this, that, and the other. And all of a sudden, he's like, you can sort of see the complexity of his character going, but I'm now being included with people like this who genuinely, Martin Short's character admits having sex with underage girls. you know,
Fucking Polanski right there.
Polanski-ish, yeah. And then like you sort of Steve Carell was sort of criticizing him, but you can almost see these moments of self-realization going on in his head where he's like, am I as bad as him? That's what I mean by a nuanced character, in the sense like he's not just like evil man, sexually harasses women, which he of course is wrong and bad to have done it, and evil in a way. But he's not all evil. Like, he can actually consider his actions and go, am I right? Am I wrong? And there's a point in the series later on, not to spoil anything, he almost becomes sympathetic. It almost starts to play him in a sympathetic manner, and you're like, hang on a second, but he's the Me Too guy. He was a harasser of women. Really weird that we're now being told to start feeling a little bit something. So it's doing all sorts. There's lots of stuff going on here. We're being asked to feel and actually think a little bit on our feet while the show's going on. It's not just giving us a one-dimensional portrayal of that situation. I think it's interesting that it's come from, it's being produced by two very high-powered women in Hollywood, who basically telling an interesting and nuanced and layered story about the Me Too movement, that it is not one size fits all.
No.
So if these two shows are anything to go by, I think, again, it's an exclusive on Apple TV Plus. I believe, again, there's a second season being greenlit for this. It's extremely high quality television. And again, I think I binged it in 2 days.
Cool.
We should quickly show them. This is the one we both watched, Mythic Quest.
Yeah, I didn't watch lots of it. I think I was able to watch the first 2, maybe 3 episodes that were free. It's a comedy show. It's an interesting. It's a very, very thin slice of subgenre that I think would actually be interested in a show like this, because it's about the programming team behind a successful MMORPG, and it feels like it's hyper aimed at gamers, which it's nice that the gaming community has reached a point where there's I've seen fucking billboards for this show around Melbourne and stuff. It's getting that much of a high profile kind of registration, but I don't know if people will find it that funny, because a lot of the comedy seems to be about the different the eternal struggle of the gaming industry between art and finance. And it's like, okay, most parents, if they didn't grow up with computer games and kind of evolve their relationship with computer games as games became more complex and more nuanced, most parents probably just look at it and say like, oh yeah, those fucking money pits. And there's not going to be any form of kind of sympathy for the programmers or anything, because they don't see a difference between a programmer and a financer. They just see the game. So I don't really know who this show is aimed at. I enjoyed it personally, but the part that I actually really enjoyed was the relationship that was building between the beta testers, which was Ashley Birch and I don't know the other actress's name.
Ani Hakim.
Yeah, absolutely charming. So delightful. Very, very realistic kind of portrayal of a burgeoning romantic environment in a workplace, and it's like, that's really adorable. The rest of it is like, okay, it's a touch and go with some of the comedy. There was certainly no laugh out loud moments for me, but
I think this show appeals to the audience that I was thinking of, and the show that it reminded me most of was Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
and I think that's a reasonably successful show, because that's been on TV for a long time. I think it's on Hulu in the States. It's written and it's created by some of the guys that wrote It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which is a very hip show to be into. I don't like it. I don't think it's funny, but apparently I'm not cool enough for it. And I would just like to call out that I enjoyed that relationship immensely as well. If nothing else, because Ashley Birch has an incredible video games pedigree. I mean, for
Oh
those
yeah.
who don't know, Ashley Birch voice is mainly a voice actress, I think you'd say, for
Hmm.
video game characters. Most importantly, she voiced Tiny Tina in Borderlands 2, and I assume Borderlands 3. Haven't checked. And she was one of the breakout characters from Borderlands 2. The Tiny Tina DLC for Borderlands 2 was fucking incredible. So it's great that they're giving her such a central role, such a great role in a show about video games. I was significantly less impressed by this than you were. I watched, I think, 3 episodes, and I hated it. I didn't laugh once. And then, that's fine. Some shows, as you sort of say, aren't laugh out loud funny. So they go, yeah, I got that joke. That's good. It's clever. I didn't get any of that. I just thought it was stupid. The jokes were stupid. The only redeeming characters apart from Ashley Birch and Iman Hakim was Charlotte Nicodeau, who plays Poppy.
Yes.
And I think it might be because she's Australian. I'm not nervous, but I'm pretty sure it's an Australian accent. But I also liked Poppy's character. I thought she was relatable. The rest of it, like Rob McElhenney, who's kind of the visionary creator of Mythic Quest, who is utterly pretentious, and F. Murray Abraham, who's the alcoholic author who writes the lore of a game, were boring and not funny, but it just sort of came across as really pretentiously trying to be funny. I will say this, though, just a little asterisk next to my negative review saying I really didn't like it, was that everything I'd heard about it was fucking awful before you got in touch with me and said, I think you really like it, you should watch it. Like a bunch of YouTubers who I watch, gaming review YouTubers, reviewed the show and said it was fucking horrible. So maybe that might have colored my going in mindset. I didn't go in completely clean and blind. I had this idea in my head that I'd been told by a bunch of people whose game reviews I respect that sucked. So maybe if you go in with a different mindset, you might find it a little bit more enjoyable than I did.
See, I actually kind of enjoyed the relationship between Rob McElhenney and F. Murray Abrams, and where they're kind of like just spitting out ideas for some of the backstory and how they're kind of playing it all together. It's like, holy fuck. That conversation is shit that I do in my head for preparation for D&D, and that's the sort of stuff that I will kind of question through for my story writing. So it hits very, very close to home there, but they have the opportunity of having 2 people to go backwards and forwards with, whereas I do it with myself, which probably is going to result in me being in a home very soon. But I actually kind of enjoyed it. I there's a lot of very stereotypes, and part of it kind of felt a little bit like it was trying to be almost to the point of somewhere between like The Office and the IT crowd.
Yeah. Silicon Valley meets The Office.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, I don't know if those types of comedy really merge well.
It's a version of The Office.
Yeah, and it just kind of like, there's something not quite right there. I'm curious about it, and if I do get Apple TV Plus, that will probably be one of the first shows that I watch.
You have iPhones, don't you?
Huh?
You're an Apple man, right?
Yeah.
They come free with the iPhone, or is it only new iPhones?
Only new iPhones. So maybe if I upgrade this year, if it's actually a worthwhile upgrade and not just one that's basically rehashed and put an extra.
Got a new hat. No, I think you're right. It's it does certainly appeal to I think that officey kind of audience, and I think that's what it's going for. Along with that's a good comparison. I never liked The Office either, so it's just not for me, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's 2 hits, 1 miss for me on Apple TV Plus. But that's it. I can see how some people might enjoy it. It's got a pretty good rating in IMDb. I think it's got about a 7.5. So 7.5. So someone's enjoying it.
Yeah. That's
I don't know. So me, that's a pretty good starting lineup. I haven't actually looked at anything else on Disney Plus, but I watched some of The Mandalorian, and I thought that was pretty good. But I haven't seen anything.
I've said my bit about The Mandalorian, and I'm not going to talk about it anymore.
I only ever watched the first 2 episodes. I haven't gone back.
I think I watched 3 episodes, and all I can say is I want Baby Yoda to fucking burn off the face of the goddamn planet.
I think as soon as I saw Baby Yoda, I'm like, merchandising, merchandising, merchandising. And like, then, of course, it's in every meme and every T-shirt, and you're like, yeah, it was going to be like Baby Groot, but like times 10.
Yeah.
So I can see that. But I mean, I enjoyed the first 2 episodes enough, but not enough that I would actually sign up for it. I already subscribed to 4 fucking streaming services. I'm not subscribing to 5.
Yeah, fuck that shit. Now, I want to talk about one of your favorite shows that I started watching, The Orville.
Okay. I feel like this is going to be controversial.
I can see exactly why you love it and why you persistently say that the modern Star Trek stuff has gone so wrong, because this is the continuation of the old school to like the next generation style of space serial show. Every single thing about it is tailored to that style, and it is 100% laser focused on someone with your heartstrings, because it is so peppered with references to 80s and early 90s stuff, and none of that makes sense. Why the fuck would anyone in that so far distant future be listening to any of that music or making references to those songs or anything like that? It makes no logical sense.
Point. Why would anybody in 2020 be listening to Beethoven? Why would anybody in 2020 be attending a play written 500 years ago like The Twelfth Night? Because it's a classic.
I'm sorry, but the shit that Seth MacFarlane enjoys, you are getting basically the same references of that pop culture. Hey, remember that in this that you got in Ted, and in Ted it's a contemporary show that makes sense because it's a man-child with a big fucking teddy bear.
I think that's the weakest part. I think that's the weakest part of a show for me. When it gets too McFarlane-y is when it's at its weakest. Like, I think what put me off watching it for so long was like, I don't need a comedic Star Trek parody. And that's exactly not what it is. There is a little bit of McFarlane peppered, that Family Guy comedy peppered in there.
Yeah.
But honestly, I'm with you. I think that's the weakest part of a show.
Mm-hmm. But aside from that, it's not my kind of show. I can appreciate it, and it is... Seth MacFarlane is really, really, really good at knowing exactly what product he wants to deliver. This goes from any of the writing stuff that he did. It goes through his Family Guy, The Cleveland Show, American Dad, all of that stuff. And it made me go, all right, you know what? I'm going to watch A Million Ways to Die in the West. And everything that he has created and written and done, it has been so specifically, you can tell that it is his vision. And this show is incredibly respectful to the style of old school Star Trek. And the way that the special effects and everything, they're not up to date. They are not immaculate, perfect renditions of what a spaceship would actually look like, or how that computer-generated image would sit against the real world. It's slightly out of date, like it is being made in the early 2000s, because he wants that touch of the old school, sort of like, we're filming this on a backlot, and you know that, but it's so engaging and endearing that you just go with that. You can tell that man's in a rubber suit. Like, the prime example of that is the Isaac, the robot.
Yeah, he looks cheap, doesn't he?
Yeah, and
it's like something out of Doctor Who from the early 80s.
Yeah, and it's every single element of that kind of... It looks a little outdated or a little old or a little wrong. It's purposeful, and I respect that. I really, really do.
You're right. He's making a show for he's making the show that he wants to see.
Yeah.
And I think for me, you're right. The special effects aren't great, and maybe I don't think that's a consequence of having a particularly low budget. I think you're right. If doing that as a choice, but for me, I guess what I stands out is this is the triumph of story over style, because the stories for me are so compelling. Most of them. I mean, there are some weak ones in there, but I don't know if you got there yet. But there's a two-parter towards the end of season 2, which is the best Star Trek story which has been made this century.
No, I haven't finished watching season 1. I'm not invested.
You know, maybe you won't, because if it's not your jam, it's not your jam. But the story is so good. It's so well written that you forget that I'm not interested in the perfect special effects. And you're right. When I started out, you're like, what does that robot look like? A fucking Cyberman from the 80s, right? Like, it's stupid. Like, by the time it's so well written, I guess for someone like me who enjoys that kind of storytelling, that you actually end up forgetting and just ignoring and just buying into the fact that he's got this stupid, cheap special effects, and that he looks like a cheap Cyberman, and that guy looks like a guy in a rubber suit and stuff. So the story is so good that none of that matters anymore, which is the exact opposite of Discovery, which is special effects, and it looks incredible. But the story is so annoyingly bad for me that I just go, I don't really care how cool your explosions are. I'm not interested in any of these characters anymore.
Now, the thing that annoys me about, certainly, I think I've watched 8 or 9 episodes of season 1. It feels like they're kind of flipping a coin every time, whether they're going to follow the expectation or purposefully break the expectation with the kind of that classic Star Trek thing of the moral of the story. You know, like, for prime example, when it comes to I can't remember the first mate's. I think it's the first mate. The sort of like sexless race guy who has an egg.
Yeah, him. Yeah.
Yeah, and they are going to do a sex change on the baby. It's like that. That was an interesting commentary and discussion point. And then the fact that it went through to the home planet's counts on the stuff. Oh, this is very, very a classic Star Trekky, and this is very Jean-Luc Picardy. They're going to come in and they're going to save the day, and they're going to be able to make the choice. The fact that they didn't, and the kind of the ethics of the pre-existing ethics continued, as like, okay, that was kind of a bold choice considering the modern world. But then there's other ones where it's like, okay, yeah, they kind of phoned that one in, and
isn't that what keeps you guessing? If they're gonna every episode, if they're gonna go against what your expectations are, then
not really.
Your expectations change.
I got bored with it because it's like, okay, it's going to be one of these two binary choices. It's either going to be exactly what I think.
My original point, though, you don't like science fiction. You like fantasy. This is science fiction. And this is not a criticism. I have it's just a furtherance of my theory that there is a line down the middle, and very few people are on both sides of a line. I'm on the science fiction side of a line.
I just find that I think it boils down to the problem of me and stories and wanting to be surprised and not getting surprised very often with movies and with TV shows.
Oh, your superpower, your spoiler superpower.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but you know, I have finally taken I think I've taken a suitable taste of the Orville pie, and while I respect what it's doing, it's just not a show for me.
If it's not for you, it's not for you. Like, I mean, I mean, I don't think you're a big Star Trek fan.
I'm a fair weather Star Trek fan.
You're kind of, it's a little bit like, you know, you watch some of it, but you're not really invested in it.
No, not in any way. No.
I think it's a show that is really really is, and you make a fair point on a lot of fronts there. Though the tone is strange sometimes. Like sometimes, like, did you have any of the episodes with a big blob character?
Interesting character.
And then, like, there's a guy who's called. I mean, there's some characters in it, like, you actually recognize the voices because they are people who do voices on Family Guy. And like, they just obviously seem to be kind of there for comedy, at least initially. Season 2 actually goes some more interesting places. I will say that if you ever give it a go, and if you can get to that far, if you can get to the end, there is, as I said, the best Star Trek story told this century.
You are the person who is saying, if you get past the first 2 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it becomes great.
I think the first season of the Orville is fine. I just think it kind of finds its feet a little bit more in season 2, in the sense of I enjoyed season 1 fine, and I got through it. You think it maybe settles down a little bit in the sense of in the first season it was trying to do both things. It was trying to do the Star Trek parody thing, and it was a little bit more comedy. And I think they turned the comedy down a little bit in the second season, which I think works because I'm not sure it quite really fits. It's not a perfect TV show by any stretch of imagination. I guess I'm saying it because they don't. I guess basically keep telling me we don't make TV for you anymore. Fuck off. That's what people who make Star Trek TV shows are saying to real Trek fans these days. When you've got people out there who, like I know some of them, who just say it's great about everything. These are the same people who said Rise of Skywalker was great.
Mm-hmm.
I think you got some valid criticisms there. Like someone find that tone annoying. I enjoy it enough, and I enjoy Steph MacFarlane's tone of TV film enough that the comedy works to some level with me because it's kind of an in joke for Trek fans.
Yeah.
And for Seth MacFarlane fans. So I'm on enough ticks of those boxes to actually look past it. But I can definitely see how that would be if you're not a MacFarlane fan, you're not a Trek fan, you're not really a sci-fi fan, but none of those things would actually really come together. It would be kind of a strange. It would be like having pickles and ice cream. Some people really like that. But, for most people, that's just going to be a really strange combination.
Exactly.
There's been a rumor going around that Seth MacFarlane might actually buy the rights to the Trek franchise.
Well, it certainly... It would certainly satisfy Star Trek fans, I think, more, because...
Have you watched any of Picard?
I don't want to talk about that this week, because I want to catch up with it, because I think that you and I are very, very divergent paths on this show.
I think we talked about the first episode and we're kind of on the same page going, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we'll come back and have a talk about that at another time.
Yeah.
You are on board. You have enough. You're on board and you get around it. I think we're up to episode 7 this week.
Yeah. I think I've got 2 episodes to catch up on. So, yeah. But my next show that I want to talk about is a delightful, quick 7-episode series on Netflix. It's a new one called I Am Not Okay With This. Now, it stars Sophie Lillis, or Lillis. She was in It, chapter 1, as Beverly Marsh. And she's going to be a very good actor as she grows up, I think. I think there's some very, very compelling young actresses out there. Her, Millie Bobby Brown. I think those 2 are going to kind of rule the world in a few years' time. But to give you the plot synopsis of this show by Netflix, it is Sydney is a teenage girl navigating the trials and tribulations of high school while dealing with the complexities of her family, her budding sexuality, and mysterious superpowers just beginning to awaken deep within her. Now, this show it whips by. Each episode is 30 minutes and it speeds past so damn quick. But it is charming. It's set in America, but it's the way that they shoot it, the cinematography of it, the lifestyle that they're depicting, it feels very, very British. And
the director is British.
Yeah, and the director, he did The End of the Fucking World,
which I really didn't like.
I haven't watched that.
Everybody was going off their tits about how good it was, and when I watched 2 episodes, it's like, yeah, I don't get this.
I have a feeling you probably wouldn't like this because just from the trailers and stuff of The End of the Fucking World and this, it's very, very similar style, very similar attitude. But it is a great little origin story for someone going through the most tumultuous time of their lives of being 17 years old in high school, dealing with all of that pressure, all the biological pressure of the everyday puberty, and then suddenly having all of this shit thrust upon them as well. The other main characters in it are Wyatt Oleff, who is another It guy. He played Stanley, and he is really good. Again, he's a very, very good actor, playing a very different type of role to what he was in It. And I think he's going to be one of those kind of Tom Hiddleston style unique actors as he grows up. He's going to be quite good. And then the third main character is Sophia Bryant, who plays Dina, Sydney's best friend. She has not been in anything that I know, but she was in The Good Wife and Blue Bloods. This is arguably her biggest thing to date, but she's very very confident in her role. Everyone seems very well cast. I think if you like coming of age, awkward comedy drama with that element of the fantasy thing, if you're a big fan of Stranger Things, and you want slightly more of the relationship side of that world of Stranger Things, this is definitely gonna hit a few of those buzzwords. One of the producers is Sean Levy. He produced this and Stranger Things, so it kind of makes sense again in that style sense. But very, very quick, 7 episodes, half hour each. You can session it in an evening. I would say if you aren't into it by the end of the second episode, just give up, because it sets itself up very quickly and it just goes at that pace. But I personally very much enjoyed it.
Well, I mean, if the Stranger Things crowd, they're pretty big. Everybody loves that show except me. I just can't get past the first half of the second season. Every time I go back and try and watch it, I'm like, no, sorry. Really like this first season though, guys. And I love the fact that they're very successful because they've released, well, I mean, I think that brought us It. Yep. And it's interesting though that you've actually got a really meta crossover, and you've got Beverly Marsh from It starring in a show from the creators of Stranger Things.
Yeah, Hollywood is incestuous. Now, I want to turn a little bit to the sad side, because Altered Carbon Season 2 came out. And the first season, it had Joel Kinnaman as Takeshi Kovacs, a kind of a legendary figure in this world where everyone's consciousness is in a stack that is in the back of the mind, and it can be put into new bodies, and people can essentially live forever as long as their stack is intact. The season 1 was kind of generic. It was a nice detective noir story set in a futuristic world, and it kind of spiraled a little bit out of control by the end of it. It had James Purefoy in it. Daishan Lashman, I think I'm pronouncing her name right. She's an Aussie girl who was in sort of like The Dollhouse. She's been on Shameless, and she turned up in Supergirl. She's one of those faces that you look at and go, oh yeah, I've seen her in stuff. She's in it. There were a lot of interesting, compelling things going into it. And then season 2 came around, and they got Anthony Mackie to come in and replace the sleeve of Takeshi Kovacs, being and losing Joel Kinnaman. And in this one, I don't know what their thought process was, because they lose all the interesting ideas of this show and go with such a boring big bad guy for the series. It is kind of painful to watch. Visually, it's as good as it has been, and the Netflix original shows usually seem to have a good amount of budget behind them, and they usually look pretty good, especially the sci-fi and the fantasy ones. They usually look the part at the very least. But this was just so uninspiring. And Anthony Mackie, he's given nothing to do that is interesting with the character when there was so much possibility. How they develop his character through the show is that they don't. He is dumber than he was before. He's not as interesting. And Anthony Mackie, no disrespect to Joel Kinnaman, but Anthony Mackie is a way more likable character, a personality than Joel Kinnaman. Joel Kinnaman is a fine actor, but Anthony Mackie is just easier to like, particularly after everything that he's done with the Falcon in the MCU. And I don't know what their thought process was for this, because they didn't seem to rush going into this. I think it was 2 years between season 1 and 2. 2018. Yeah, 2018 it was season 1 and 2020 for season 2. So they had a good amount of time. It just feels like they kind of half-assed it. So like, oh no, it's good enough. It's like, well, season 1 was okay. Wasn't the runaway success that season 1 of Stranger Things was, or House of Cards, or any of those ones. So I would have expected them to up their game on this, and they really didn't. Even one of the kind of secondary characters, the kind of artificial intelligent hotel owner, Poe, played by Chris Connor, he was really good, a scene stealer in every scene of season 1. They bring him back in this one, and it's like, okay, all right, it's good to see the character back. And yes, they've kind of explained how he continues on from season 1 to season 2, because I'm not going to spoil anything there. But his story and his arc throughout the whole thing is really interesting, but they just half-ass it throughout. And I'm so disappointed with it. If they have a season 3, I'll probably end up watching it because I probably still have a subscription, but I'm not excited for it. It's such a shame.
You can see it just by flipping between season 1 and 2 here on IMDb. I didn't watch season 1 because I think you might have given me a fairly mediocre review, and I kind of thought, oh, well, okay, maybe give it a miss. But you look at season 1, you're seeing high 7s to mid 8s per episode.
Yeah.
Flip to season 2, it's high 6s to low 7s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, over 56,000 votes, I think, you can see the dip in quality is reflected in what people have said about the second season.
Yeah.
I got a hot take, though.
Mm.
Anthony Mackie is a lousy actor. And I don't think he's done anything good that wasn't part of a Marvel universe. And I'll put my hand up and say I haven't seen Detroit, which I think had a fairly good sort of pedigree in place. But I don't think if you have a look at his filmography there, I think he's very, very, very lucky to have landed in the MCU, because I don't know that he's much of an actor. The only other thing I've seen him in that I like was Black Mirror. But I don't like everything about Black Mirror. So, I'm not sure. I think he might be like, I'm going to go hot take. I don't think Chris Hemsworth's done anything good outside of the MCU, aside from the 5 minutes he was in the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek film. Everything he's done outside of the MCU has sucked.
Yeah, Anthony Mackie is a charming guy, but yeah, he's not really kind of shown any real powerful acting guts, in my opinion.
I think he's just in the right place at the right time with a lot of very talented people.
Yeah.
Much the way, unfortunately, Chris Hemsworth is a very good-looking man who is in the right place at the right time with exactly the right role for him with a lot of talented people. He should keep doing Thor for as long as they'll let him.
He was kind of good in Cabin in the Woods, but he was basically
playing... He was good, but that was very early. And I would say, I don't think Hugh Jackman has ever done a particularly good role, but wasn't in the X-Men films.
I liked him in The Prestige, for sure.
Bit of a flop.
That's debatable. I I don't think that Chris Nolan has really made a flop.
It's the Chris Nolan film we don't talk about.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if anyone is still listening to this terrible man speak, I need you to sound out your love for The Prestige. I mean, fucking Michael Caine. Come on.
Yeah.
And Mr. Starman himself.
It's not saying much because the guy's a great director, but I think it's the worst film he's ever done. This is a bit like saying this is the worst album the Beatles have ever made, but I think it's his weakest film.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm tossing between that and his remake of Insomnia.
I really liked Insomnia.
That had impeccable actors in it. I don't know how much Chris Nolan actually brought to that, but it's still a great movie. It's
really degrees of greatness here, but yeah. Anyway, I just always think to myself, for someone who's such a big star, Hugh hasn't done very much outside the X-Men films.
Again, he's incredibly lovable, is the thing. Chris Hemsworth, and Anthony Mackie, they all seem to be really, really lovely guys, and people just want to give them work. Because
I'm very great guys to get along with, but I just think they just got again, Anthony Mackie should keep doing Marvel films as long as they'll let him.
Yeah, that's fair. I really love Hugh Jackman in The Fountain. I love The Fountain.
The other one.
Fuck you.
It's a controversial film, that one. I wanted to ask just quickly, though, we need to wrap up a little bit because I'm going back to work now. I got to go to sleep for work nowadays, unfortunately. My days of man of leisure, gallivanting around Melbourne, are unfortunately come to a close for the time being. Before we all get killed by the coronavirus, what are your thoughts on them delaying the James Bond film by 6 fucking months?
Them saying, "Oh, this is because of the coronavirus." This is an excuse. They were clearly not finished with production of this movie on either in post-production, editing, whatever. This is an excuse. And I will put money down that there are going to be a bunch more of those movies coming out that are going to suddenly be pushed because of the coronavirus. I think a lot of businesses are using this as an excuse, just because it's like, oh no, we could do with a bit more time. People will justify this, blah blah blah.
6 months seems like an awful, actually November, so it's more like 7 months.
Yeah, that's a very long time to push for. They've wrapped this movie. They have a release
date next month.
Yeah. How much more was there to go? I reckon the producers have looked at this and gone, okay, is there anything we can do to make this, to get us a little bit happier? Because we need this movie to be a critical success and a commercial success, because the last movies have been questionable on both counts. And I think that they're just using it as a useful excuse. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, the coronavirus. Everything is fucking digital now. There is no worry of, oh, we've got to ship the film print from China to the US. It's like, no, it's all fucking digital. It goes over the internet where the coronavirus has not infected.
My take on it wasn't about shipping the film. It was more of the fact that they're closing cinemas in market like China. I assume have closed cinemas in large chunks of the country. And that was where they were expecting to make a giant chunk of their box office, was China.
It's the second largest fucking business.
Well, and then there's a potential if things get worse. And I am tipping they do get worse in the US. They don't have healthcare. Their people don't have sick leave, and they have a massive undocumented population who don't want to go to hospital. We're not getting into politics. I think it's going to get worse. I guess they're thinking maybe in a month's time they'll be starting to do the same thing in the US. At which point in time, it doesn't really matter how you're distributing your film digitally or otherwise, people aren't going to the cinema.
Otherwise, the other thought is they looked at the early tests of the movie and thought, you know what? Considering Joker got so much Oscar success. I wonder if we could push Bond. Maybe they are so confident in this movie that they're just repositioning it a little bit into the Oscars environment.
That's an interesting take. I would probably lean towards your first take a little bit more.
Yeah, that's
Maybe
what I
mix it.
think. But you know,
Maybe mix it in
it's
with
a
a little
possibility.
truth. They might be a bit nervous about Chinese theaters being closed,
Yeah,
and at the same time, it doesn't look very good. And maybe if a test audience scores came back and said it's a pile of shit,
yeah.
maybe they're going to try and do some reshoots.
Mm.
It could be an
But,
interesting challenge in itself, but yeah.
The 6 month delay just because there's going to be cinemas closed. That just seems too far of a stretch for me. I can understand sort of like, oh yeah, we won't do it right now. We'll leave it 2 months or something like that. Even then, it falls into summer, Bond summer blockbuster. That should make lots of money. But pushing it right to November, that's just too much of a bitter pill. That is not going down for me personally.
There you go. Hot take was all will be revealed in time.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't looking forward to it. I'm not a massive Bond fan, but I usually go. I mean, I enjoyed Casino Royale, and I'm one of a few people who actually liked Pierce Brosnan as Bond. Like apparently it's unfashionable to like him because he's a sexist. Of course he's a fucking sexist. He's James fucking Bond.
Yeah.
That's what he is.
Yeah.
He's a fucking
I'm sorry.
sexist.
Daniel Craig's Bond is no better with women. I mean, borderline rape that he did with Monica Bellucci in the last movie. It's like that was just categorically bad. Yeah. That I made an entire list of all of the James Bond themes, and there's a lot to be gleaned, shall we say, from the choices that they make on their Bond themes. I'll go into that more maybe next episode because we're going long. We don't want to bore everyone, all those bots. But I have theories.
Yeah, so what do you think of a new theme?
I think it's a great song. I think it's a terrible Bond theme.
And if you had to pick one of the Daniel Craig films as your preferred Bond theme,
Casino Royale, You Know My Name, Chris Cornell.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yep.
Yeah. So, do you have an all-time favorite Bond theme that you enjoy above all others?
Ooh, now that's a tough one. I have a very big soft spot for The Living Daylights by Aha. GoldenEye was perfect timing of a great Bond movie with that kind of music for young George. That just really hit me as like, oh yeah, because it builds up at the end. It's kind of got that Shirley Bassey kind of old school Bond theme vibe, but with a slightly newer, cool thing. That was just at that peak, just before Bono and the Edge decided to think that they were literal gods on Earth, and they were making some interesting stuff. Then it very quickly went downhill from there. Uniformly the worst Bond of all time, Die Another Day by Madonna.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I think you posted this on the Fried Brain Productions page, and I actually added the video for The World Is Not Enough by Garbage. And I could be wrong, but I think you might have been thinking I was nominating it for one of the worst. It's actually one of my favorites.
Again, it's a great. I don't think there's really any bad Bond songs except for Die Another Day. But
I'm sorry, Sam Smith's one from the last film was awful.
No, listening to it on its own, it's actually quite a good song. It's just bad Bond. And the last few, Adele, Skyfall, again, good song. Before that, you had Another Way to Die by Jack White and Alicia Keys. And that was the last Bond song where it actually had sort of like some boom, 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 boom to it. And it's sort of like, okay, this is an action movie. Adele, Sam Smith, Billie Eilish, they've made well thought out, compelling songs that when you listen to them, it's like, okay, they're actually trying to get emotion into this. It's completely wrong feel for a Bond fucking movie. These aren't considered dramatic characterization stories. They're dumb action movies strung together with the worst storylines ever created for cinema, except Transformers. If they just accepted, yep, we know what film we're making, let's match some appropriate music there. It's like the fucking Transporter movies with Jason Statham and how they have this weird French jazz to them. It's like, okay, that's a weird choice, and it's choreographically it fits. But put the fucking Matrix soundtrack over the Transporter, and suddenly that movie becomes even better. It's so weird.
I'm going to say, well, I guess what bothers me, I don't like Sam Smith at all. In any way, shape, or form. I just think his music is just god awful. But the fact that they passed over a Radiohead song, the Radiohead version of Spectre, I mean, apparently people don't like it. I thought it was wonderful. But how you could
you're a Radiohead apologist.
How anyone could pass over Radiohead, the Sam fucking Smith, Sam fucking Smooth FM Smith? No. But I guess you want to sell records. Sam Smith is maybe popular with children. I don't know. And Radiohead are a little bit last century, but they are also geniuses.
They're also depressed.
Well, yes, you would know. You met him once, didn't you?
Yes. And he was very, very depressed, and he was just looking at shoes.
You tried looking at shoes recently, you don't have your color, you don't have your size. It's an uphill battle.
Don't get me started on that, man. It's a sore subject. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to put this parodical farce to an end. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and all of you Russian bots. We've missed you. Please send us love and attention. And good night.
I can't remember how to say good night in Russian, but good night.
Hey, good night in Russian.
Ask me how I am, and tell me what's beneath this sleep. There's something else in place, and in the silence those words will keep. Will keep, will keep. What is your truth? Has it been blurred by time? Has taking pieces bit by bit. The more we're shown, the less we know. Helpless by all and after still, we'll keep, we'll keep. What is your truth? Has it been blurred by time? Has it seeped away from you? What is your truth?